All right. Here we go. Here we go. Let's just make sure we're live. You guys know me. I got to see it. That's how it goes. That's just how it goes. YouTube, you with us? Is you Rockfin's here. Rockfin is live. YouTube is also live. All right, we got everyone. We got it. What do you guys think of my new software? Let me know. Let me know. By the way, this is we're even though this is the last show on the current format, we are going to kind of do it sort of like the new format, as in this is the only it's only just going to be the one stream. So yeah. All right, we are up and at 'em. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good for everyone tuning into the podcast later. Hope you are well. And by the way, this is the last audio podcast. This is we're switching up formats here at Get Your News On with Ron. We're going to be talking about that more later in the show today. That's actually what most of the show is going to be about. But we're switching up formats. This is the last audio podcast of Get Your News On with Ron to make room for a new podcast series that I'm doing. Get Your News On with Ron is still going to happen. It's just going to happen. Happened. It's just going to happen strictly as a live stream. And best way to stay abreast with everything is to become a patron. You can become a patron of mine for as low as $1 a month. I have a Give What You Can Patreon. The suggested tier is $5 a month, but if that's a little too steep for you, just give whatever you're comfortable giving, and that's all it takes. And you will still get all the Get Your News On with Ron streams when they happen. You'll get full stand-up clips not available anywhere else. I'm going to drop my full set from May 12th shortly. You will get stuff that is available nowhere else. In fact, I might be doing a patrons only book soon. I've been thinking about it. I'll be talking more about that later too. But so anyway, best way to make sure everything stays exactly the same for you is to just join the Patreon, which you can do for as low as $1 a month. And I drop all my regular stuff on my Patreon as well. So really, it's like $1 a month to just get all my stuff in one place and bonus stuff. And that all it takes is $1 a month. If you got more, great. But anyway, all right. So you get the idea. So let's dive into it. So we're going to be talking later in the show about all the changes to Get Your News On with Ron. By the way, everybody, hit the like button. Some people, Lucy, grazie, much appreciated. There, see, I'm doing the chat thing right away because we're just doing the one today. This is going to be part of the new format. So we're going to be talking about all the changes to the show later. But first, we're going to open with some thoughts on RFK. So let's start with kind of what I said on Status Quo a couple weeks ago. I have not been paying much attention to 2024. I really haven't. And the reason for that is because I don't think there's going to be an actual Democratic primary. The DNC just wants to completely prop up Joe Biden. I believe that's what's going to happen. Over on the Republican side, it is either going to be more of the same or even worse. So I don't have much enthusiasm for 2024. And I've never seen less enthusiasm for a presidential election in my lifetime, just for the record. I mean, I know it's still early, but I just have not been paying much mind to 2024 stuff. There's just way more important things, the way I see it, and I only have so much bandwidth, just like everyone else. So I had not been paying much attention to RFK. I had not been paying much attention to Marianne Williamson. I had not been paying much attention to any of that. I only talk about it when I am asked, and my 2024 enthusiasm is usually not very high. And some people say like that's cynical, and it's all about perspective, because the way I see it, there is nothing more cynical than thinking the only road to change is through the White House. To me, that's cynical, because that's where you have the smallest chance of freaking winning is the White House. So if you're going to say, well, we got to just put all of our eggs in a presidential election basket, to me, that's incredibly cynical. Like, really? So you're cynical to going out in your neighborhood You're cynical to trying to take over your school board. You're cynical to trying to get a city council seat, to being a mutual aid activist, to being a policy activist. All that stuff pales in comparison to a presidential once every 4 years. So you guys have heard me give my spiel on this before. This is nothing new from me. So I had not been, giving it a big eye. And I started looking into RFK a little bit more because Tina wanted to have a discussion about him on Status Coup, which we did a couple weeks ago. And since then, I've taken a little bit of a deeper dive into him. And people have asked me also, they're like, Ron, what are your thoughts on RFK? What do you think about RFK? And another thing I've noticed is a lot of people seem to be really excited about RFK in a very uncritical way. Like they're just sort of really celebrating this guy. So when people ask me my thoughts on RFK, if I had to sum it up in just one, like just one sentence or just one thought, my short answer, not convinced. Someone's like, Ron, what's your take on RFK? Not convinced. Not convinced on a lot of the stuff that this guy is saying, and not convinced on him in general. So here's the thing. When it comes to electoralism on the left in the contemporary United States, traditionally, at least since 2016, there's kind of been three pillars that you really look at. Pillar number one, are you anti-war? Pillar, and these are in no particular order, by the way. Pillar number two, no corporate money. Pillar number three, universal health care, Medicare for all. Are you for universal health care, Medicare for all? RFK, out of those three boxes, RFK Jr. checks maybe one. Maybe one out of those three. And the Meatloaf song, you know that Meatloaf song, maybe one out of three ain't bad. No. It's called 2 out of 3 ain't bad. RFK Jr. sure as hell doesn't have 2 out of 3. He might have 1 out of 3. Maybe one. That's maybe one. So let's start with Wall Street. RFK Jr. does have ties to Wall Street. He also has CIA ties, and he says that most of the people in the CIA are nice people. But let's look at the Wall Street tie. So this is from CNBC. Meet the Wall Street executive funding RFK Jr.'s anti-vaccine group. A veteran Wall Street executive told CNBC that he has been helping bankroll RFK Jr.'s anti-vaccine group and has become an informal advisor to the organization. Mark Gordon, founder and chairman of high-frequency trading firm Tower Research Capital, said he has given $1 million to the anti-vaccine nonprofit organization. Okay, so these are Wall Street ties. Whether you're for the organization or not is irrelevant. These are Wall Street ties. He's gotten over $1 million. And who is this Gordon fellow? Well, this fellow, he has done some stuff in the environmental space that looks to be like, okay, these are some environmental initiatives. That's great. He's also a hedger. What does that mean in short? That means this is a Wall Street person who is supposedly trying to save the planet, but in the meantime, they don't mind getting rich destroying it. Kind of like a Tom Steyer. Hey, I want to save the planet, even though I've become a billionaire by helping destroy it. I've gotten rich off the entities that are destroying the planet, but I want to save it now. I'm a billionaire. Now, this Gordon fellow, no, I'm not sure this person's net wealth. I don't know if they're a billionaire or not, but same premise here. Oh, I have these environmental initiatives. Also, I'm a big Wall Street hedger. So I hedge on stuff that's destroying the planet, but I want to save it. You can trust me. This is somebody who is giving RFK money. So when it comes to no corporate money, no dark money, no Wall Street money, RFK Jr. doesn't check that box. All right. So that's 0 for 1. All right. Now, the next one we'll go to is healthcare and Medicare for all. I went on his website to start researching the guy for Status Coup. When Tina was like, I want to talk about RFK, I went on his website. Doesn't say anything about universal healthcare or Medicare for all. He was asked about it directly on the show Breaking Points, And this is what he had to say. Now, we're going to go through this answer because some people are saying, oh, that means he's for it. Listen to his answer. All right. We're just going to listen to this together. Okay. So let's see. What happened here? This is, what? Okay. I want to show this. Oh, wait, here it is. Where's the tweet that I want to show? Huh. All right. Hold on, folks. I need to do a little maneuver here to get this tweet, unfortunately. All right. Be with you in just a moment. That's kind of funny. Okay. So let me pull up this tweet. So it told me I tried to pull up the tweet, but I'm not logged in. And so Twitter flagged it for like age sensitive content. That's what happened. I didn't show you guys the screen. I wonder why Twitter did that. So what happened was I wasn't logged into my Twitter. So when I tried to get to that tweet, it like didn't show it to me because it said it's age sensitive. All it is they're asking a guy a question about healthcare. Why would that be age sensitive? Social media is weird. Well, anyway, I fixed it now. All right. So let's listen to this clip. Okay. Now here's the tweet from Case Study. Breaking points. Crystal Ball asked RFK Jr. if he supports Medicare for all. Now, they quoted him here. And I don't know if this is just because of they only had so many character spaces, but the quote they attribute to him is, I don't know how politically realistic that is, but if you ask me, if I were to design a system from the beginning, that is what I would do. Now, if you just read this quote, if you just read their tweet in this quote, that sounds like he likes Medicare for all. But that's not his full answer. Even in this clip here, that's not his full answer. And this kind of misrepresents what he actually said. Now, I don't know if this is, again, just because of character spaces. I'm not sure. But you have to actually listen to his answer and not just take this tweet for it because they don't dive into his full answer. Here's his full answer. We're going to listen to it right now. Ready? Here we go.
As you know, every other developed nation in the world has universal health care. Do you support universal health care through a Medicare for all program or something similar?
I would say my highest ambition would be to have a single payer program, which, with people who want to have private programs can go ahead and do that, but to have a single payer program that is available to everybody. I don't know how politically realistic that is, but, if you ask me, if I were designing the system from the beginning, that's what I would do.
Okay, so he's saying a single payer program that's available to everyone. And if people want private insurance, they can have it. And if he was starting from scratch, that's what he would do. That means he's for a public option. When he's saying, if I started from scratch, that's what I would do. He was referring to his answer. If he supported Medicare for all, his answer to her question would have just been yes. Yes. He didn't say yes. He said, oh, well, I think there should be a program that's available to everyone, but if people want private insurance, that's a public option. That's what a public option is. A public option is something that's available to everyone. Anyone can buy into it, but if you just want your private insurance, well, that's fine. And a public option wouldn't work. Why? Because for universal healthcare to work, it has to be universal. You have to have everyone in the pool. That's how it works. And where does that work? Every other industrialized country in the world. And he also says, I don't know how politically realistic that is. So he's for a public option, and he doesn't really feel that strongly about it. You listen to his answer. He's not for Medicare for all. If he is, that was the worst way of answering that question ever. And some people, they just read that quote, and they're like, well, I think that sounds like he's for it, right? No, he isn't. And the people who are trying to listen to that and are still saying, because people responded to me when I'm like, yeah, his answer is no. That answer is no. People were like, well, I don't think so, blah, blah, blah. My question to you, honest question. If that same answer, his same verbatim answer was given by Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris or anyone else, Would you say that sounds like someone who's supporting Medicare for all? And if the answer is no, well, then you got to ask yourself, well, why do you feel that way about RFK then? Because clearly that answer is no. That's political speak for no. Okay? So 0 for 2 so far. Out of the 3 pillars, RFK Jr.'s 0 for 2. All right. So let's go to that third pillar. This is the maybe one. All right. Are you anti-war? Now, look, one of the things I liked on RFK's website was what he had to say about Russia-Ukraine. He said we shouldn't be using Ukraine as a pawn to try to intimidate Russia and antagonize Russia. We should be calling for diplomacy immediately. We should end this horrible conflict. I agree. That's great. And by the way, I mean, I want to see this happen on a debate stage. We'll get more into that in a second. But here's the thing. Let's dive into this guy's history a little more. We're talking Wall Street ties, some CIA ties, and guess what else? This guy has endorsed Hillary Clinton every opportunity he has. All right? I mean, he's entrenched in that world. The Clinton world, he's entrenched in it. And I'll be honest with y'all, to me, that is a pause for concern. All right, to me, like, and I've had some peaks under the Clinton adjacent world before. All right, I've had that, and I can tell you, it's some of the shadiest shit I've ever seen in my freaking life. So anybody who rubs elbows in that world, yeah, I'm a little skeptical. I'm gonna be skeptical. I'm gonna proceed with caution. So, he's so anti-war. Well, he never missed an opportunity to endorse the queen of the warmongers. That's a quote from Tulsi Gabbard, by the way. Queen of the warmongers, Hillary Clinton. So, gee, that's a cause for concern, isn't it? People, Ron, he's for freeing Assange. Okay, that's awesome. Was he for freeing Assange when he was endorsing the person who makes jokes about bombing Assange? Hillary Clinton made jokes about drone bombing Julian Assange. That's RFK's person. Was he for Assange then? And look, I'm not saying that people can't change. I would never say that. And also, as a leftist, we need to give people room to change. However, that doesn't mean we should just uncritically jump on bandwagons. And in the world of politics, there is a thing called opportunism. That's a thing that exists. And there are opportunists out there. And it's not just limited to people running for office. It can be people running podcasts. It can be anything where you see an opportunity, you see a lane, and you want to get in it. And RFK Jr. is seeing a rise in his popularity right now. And now all of a sudden, he's in all of these other lanes. He's in all these contrarian lanes. RFK Jr. is playing that fiddle. He's really into Bitcoin. He's against the wars. He's this, he's that. And I'm saying proceed with caution. And the fact that so many people are uncritically just celebrating this guy is cause for concern to me. So that's my take on him. And do I think he's an opportunist? Yes, that's what I think. Now, time will tell. Now that's just where I'm at right now. Like, maybe as time goes on, I'll be like, I think maybe he's sincere. I'm not a mind reader. But the fact that so many people are not proceeding with caution with this guy. I mean, a lot of people who I know and respect who are saying stuff like, oh my God, I love it. He's just challenging the establishment, blah, blah, blah. Like, are you sure this is the guy? You're sure? And you look at his past and you don't see any concerns. You don't see any concerns whatsoever. Now, all of this being said, I sincerely want there to be a debate with him, Joe Biden, and Marianne Williamson, especially since, as far as rhetoric is concerned, when it comes to domestic policy, I like Marianne Williamson and what she's saying better than RFK because she's for Medicare for all, among other things. And when it comes to foreign policy, well, Marianne Williamson has some takes I strongly disagree with, whereas RFK Jr., at least when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, is saying some good things. So I want to see that on the debate stage. I want to see Joe Biden challenged in all those areas, and it's probably not going to happen, and that's terrible. That's terrible. So, yeah, I want to see that happen. But what I am saying is, look, I get that when you are kind of like when you're anti-establishment, whether it's anti-establishment left or anti-establishment in some other way, anti-establishment right, whatever, we are all so used to having nobody in our corner. We are all so used to having no voice, no power politically, that whenever somebody is playing the fiddle a little bit, you kind of want to cling to that. So I get it. I get why somebody would hear what this guy's saying and want to cling to some of it. But what I'm saying is folks, opportunists are out there, and we've all fallen for them before. And when somebody has as many red flags as this guy does, and there are many more, I mean, how could you not proceed with the utmost caution? And I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced by the guy. If I had to vote tomorrow, I would not vote for him. And it's interesting, on Status Quo, another aside here, on Status Quo, we talked about all this, and I said on Status Quo, I was like, look, if there's some kind of big, like the fact that people are making it out like he's some big leftist here, the guy who's not for universal health care, who's not for Medicare for all, who has ties to Wall Street, says the CIA are a bunch of nice people, never missed an opportunity to endorse Clinton. If this is he says, he seems to be all about climate change, but you look on his website, there's no actual plans. He doesn't support a real Green New Deal or anything like that. There's no actual plans. If this guy is some big leftist, please let me know what I'm missing here. What am I missing? And I looked at the comments, and most of the people informing me of what I'm missing were telling me I'm a piece of shit. So I gotta say, if that is the canvas strategy, might need a little bit of work. All right, guys, we're going door to door for RFK. Remember the script. If somebody has some hesitancy towards him and isn't convinced about him, what do we tell them? We call them a piece of shit. All right, good. Let's go win people over. That's how we're going to get the votes. Yeah, I'm not so sure about this guy. There's a lot of things in his past that are really concerning. Well, you're a piece of shit. Oh, you convinced me. I'm going to go vote for him now. That was really persuasive. That, hey, I have some concerns about his views on vaccines and on this and on that. And what are your take on? Well, you're a piece of shit. Oh, okay. I didn't realize. I never thought of it that way. I'm a piece of shit. I'm going to go vote for him. You swayed me. So I don't know. I mean, if you're trying to win people over, you might want to rethink that strategy. I know that a YouTube comment section isn't the real world, but boy, Dennis Kucinich is going to have his work cut out for him if the comment section I saw is any indication of the type of outreach that guy has. So that's my take. Not convinced. Maybe 1 out of 3 ain't good enough. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, according to Meatloaf. But maybe 1 out of 3. Maybe 1. Not so great. All right. So there you go. That's my take on RFK Jr. So let's move on to Get Your News On with Ron. Thoughts. And by the way, if you want to contribute to the conversation, please do leave a Rockfin tip or a super chat. I will get to all of your Rockfin tips or super chats, later. We'll get to the chat after this. But first, I want to talk about what's going on with Get Your News On with Ron. As I have mentioned many times, and I'm going to keep mentioning it, Get Your News On with Ron is not ending. The show's going to keep going. But it's basically going back to almost going back to basics in a way. And I'm going to talk about a brief history of the show. And first of all, what is changing? The audio podcast is going away. For those of you who listen to the audio podcast of Get Your News On with Ron is going away because I'm going to be doing less post-production to make room for a new flagship podcast show. And so that's that. If you get Your News On with Ron as an audio podcast, please become a patron for $1 a month. Check it out on YouTube. Check it out on Patreon later. And for as low as $1 a month, you can get all the Get Your News On with Ron stuff, and you never miss anything. So what's going to change other than the audio podcast going away? Well, instead of doing 2 different streams like we had been doing, it's just going to be one long stream. And it's going to be a little more casual, a little more chatty, kind of like today, basically. Another thing is it's going to be at different days and times. It's not just going to be Sunday all the time. I'll still do Sunday some, but it'll be different days and times. And what's the best way to stay abreast on when exactly it'll be? Again, become a patron. Best way to do it. And let's see, what else is, when I say going back to the original way of Get Your News On with Ron, when this show started, it started as just the live stream idea. I wanted to do more live streaming, and I like the idea of like people just kind of tweet me stuff they want to talk about, and we just kind of talk about it in real time together. So that was how Get Your News On with Ron started. It was like you could tweet me an article at Ron Placode. We'll go through it together, make it our own, and it was fun, right? You know, like it was a fun time. And then it got to the point where the issue with a show like that is once there's more than like 5 people who are into it, it becomes too much to manage. And people were tweeting me stuff, and it was stuff that I didn't know all of the source material because it was like just right on the spot. And I was trying to speak coherently on things that I didn't know a ton of the background on. So I immediately, I was like, okay, this, we can't do this. Like, this is just like, this is okay for like a call-in talk show or something, but to like actually try to present stuff and you guys are just tweeting me stuff. I don't know the background. I don't know the history. You know, like this is just too much for me to manage. So we switched gears and it became more of a people get their news on with me type deal where I present stories that are really important to me to people and have a guest. But it started to become hard getting guests because sometimes people don't want to just talk about news, especially if it's just news they might not be, you know, privy to ahead of time. So then it just sort of became, hey, this is just news that I think is important. And that kind of brings us to present day. And it started out as just kind of a casual live stream. And that was the whole premise of the show. And it became sort of my flagship show. As in, there is an audio podcast version of it. There is the live stream version of it. It streams on different platforms. And now I've reached a point where I want to bring it back to basics, where it becomes more of a casual show and it becomes just strictly a live stream. Yeah. So that's basically where we're at. Like, I want to take this show back to basics. And I want to be, you know, just have it be the casual stream it's meant to be. And it's going to make way for a new podcast series. And that podcast series is called 1000. And here's the premise of 1000. I'm going to go ahead and read this to y'all. And I will be releasing the trailer to 1000 both on YouTube and on a podcast platform to be determined soon. My plan is to launch the series in July. We've already recorded some really cool interviews. I'm so excited about some of the guests we got coming up. Some of the early guests include Jello Biafra, Jess Silk, the singer-songwriter out of the UK. And we're going to have a bunch more before we start launching, and we should start launching in July. Some comedian colleagues of mine who you may not be familiar with yet, but you're going to love their freaking stories. Trust me. So here's what 1000 is. It's a quest to have 1,000 different conversations with 1,000 interesting people. So many years ago, I interviewed publisher and musician V. Val, which, by the way, I hope to interview him for 1000 as well. since he kind of inspired this podcast. V is the founder of Research Publications. He published the legendary zine Search and Destroy. He began his publishing endeavors from two $100 gifts, one from Lawrence Ferlinghetti and one from Allen Ginsberg. Pretty badass. So during our interview, he told me, among other things, that he believes there's only 1,000 interesting people in the world, and that it's his job to document as much of that as possible. Now, I don't agree with that in the literal sense, nor do I know if he meant it literally. I think there's way more than 1,000 interesting people in the world, and besides, who am I to say what is and isn't interesting? Who is anyone, for that matter? But the sentiment of it stuck with me. What if I went on a quest to interview 1,000 different people that piqued my interest in some way? And interest is a broad topic, right? Maybe I appreciate their work. Maybe I love their music or their writing or their films. Maybe they're an academic. Maybe they're a colleague of mine. Maybe they're a fellow comedian. Hell, maybe I disagree with them on a bunch of things. Interest is a broad concept. But one thing all of these guests will have in common is they have stories that I want the world to know. And thus far in the show, there are my favorite stories about changing careers. There's my favorite story about the concept of retirement. There's my favorite story about the comedian Mitch Hedberg. There's my favorite story about a comedian standing up to a corrupt booker. It's all, and that's just within the first pre-recorded episodes we have. There's going to be 1,000 of these things, folks. So this podcast has a start and a finish. There's going to be 1,000 different people. No more, no less. Now, just to give you the scope of that, if I did an interview every day, which is a pace I guarantee you I will not reach, but if I interviewed somebody every day, it would take me almost 3 years to do all of the interviews. If I publish an episode every week, which is the benchmark I plan to hit, I plan to publish an episode every week, and I'll do clips on YouTube and stuff like that. It's going to be audio and video. Now, if I do that, a full episode every week, it will take me nearly 20 years to complete the series. So this is more than a podcast. This is a quest, and it's a quest that will take around 20 years. For all we know, podcasts might not even be a thing anymore. So I don't know if I'll finish this thing. All I know for sure, it'll be a heck of a ride either way. And plus, the interviews should be good because in each case, it will likely be my last time interviewing this person. These are one and done. There won't be like, hey, we'll have to have you back. No, there is no having you back. It's 1,000 people. So there will technically there will be 1,001 episodes because the trailer will be an episode. And there might be, like maybe there will be like another trailer or something like that. I don't know. So there will technically be more than 1,000 episodes, but it will be 1,000 interviews. And then that is it. And I've been wanting to do this project for 8 years now. I got the idea that interview that I referenced with V-Val happened. I think that I've interviewed V-Val twice, and then I want to interview him a third time for 1,000. But that interview happened around 2015, the second time. And whether that specific quote was in the first interview or second interview, I can't recall. But it was in that second interview that I decided I really wanted to, I really wanted to do that series. And, I'm doing it. I'm going to freaking do it. So we'll see. And I'm real excited about it. And I'm real excited to bring it to you. So again, Get Your News On with Ron, not going away, just changing formats, going back to its roots. It's not going to be the flagship podcast. 1,000 is, and there's not going to be an audio podcast anymore for Get Your News On with Ron, but it will still be on YouTube. It will still be streamed, and the full streams will be available for patrons. And again, patreon.com/Ron Placone. $1 a month, all it takes. $1 a month. All right, so let's go to the chat. Podcast by George. What's up? Great take on RFK Jr. Thank you, George. Is the best we can hope for is he pushes Biden left a smidge? ? Meh. I would love to see him challenge Biden on foreign policy. I'd love to see that. I mean, regardless of the fact that I don't, like, yeah, I have disagreements with the guy and I have great concerns about the guy. But I still would love to see him challenge Biden in that area. Absolutely. And by the way, something I said on Status Quo that I'll say again, I don't see how he would be a worse president than Biden. I mean, that's an insanely low bar, but I don't see how he'd be a worse president. So I think Marianne Williamson would make a better president than Joe Biden. I have disagreements with her as well. A lot of her foreign policy takes concern me, but I would love to see a debate with the three of them where she's challenging Biden on more domestic stuff and RFK is challenging him more on foreign stuff. The DNC is going to shove Biden down our throats. And here's the issue. We saw in 2016 and 2020 what the DNC is capable of. They can pretty much just fix whatever they want. And now they're making it clear that they're going to fix it. They're making it clear we're not going to have debates. We're not going to have a primary. We're going to shove Rip Van Reagan down your throat again, whether you like it or not. And that is effed up. I think, some people are more convinced of RFK than others. I am definitely in the very, 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 very skeptical camp. But I think one thing that we'll all agree on is that there should be debates. I don't know anyone who doesn't feel that way. Well, except for, Biden stands. But I think everybody, whether they're for Marianne Williamson, whether they're for RFK, whether they're, just kind of undecided and just think, well, gee, Biden's pretty freaking terrible, but it doesn't look like we're going to have a primary. I think everybody wants to see debates. I don't know anyone who doesn't feel that way. So yeah, I hear you there. Let's see. Des Bush Fleiss, what's up? Interview someone with a super green thumb. You need these self-grown tomatoes, Ron. I know. I'm going to try again, Des Bush Fleiss. I'm going to try again. And actually, there is a guy who is into some, like, a lot of kind of green living and green living adjacent stuff that I got turned on to by Nathan. Nathan, I don't know if you're watching today, but you turned me on to somebody. And I'm drawing a blank to their name off the top of my head. Let me see if I can. But we have been corresponding via email. I'm still learning more about the person, but so far I've been curious to talk to them. So they will probably be a guest on 1000. That's the other thing about 1000. Like, again, the way Get Your News On with Ron works, it was really hard for me. It was really hard for me to, like, get guests. And with 1000, it will be way easier for me to get guests. So I kind of like that. Pittsburgh dude, I'm with you. Iraq will be a better president than Joe Biden. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. And I agree. Joe Biden. They're going to shove him down our throats again. Yeah, I just can't. And by the way, I can't justify, and this goes beyond just the candidates. I don't see why anyone, I mean, what they're going to do. So I just don't get why anybody would put bandwidth into a 2024 thing. And I know that the people, oh, come on, Ron. But it's like, dude, the left is the smallest group politically by far. And there's so many things that we could be focused on where we would actually have some power. Like local is where we can build power. Withholding our labor, organized labor movements, strikes, protests, union efforts. Those are areas where we can actually wield power. And I just think that putting stake in when there's going to be a non-existent primary, to me, it is just such a waste of bandwidth. And look, if people have a lot of means and they want to give money to RFK or Marianne Williamson, that's their choice. That's your choice. I'm not going to tell anyone what they can and can't do. But if you, like, have limited resources, which I don't know about you guys, but I certainly do. But when I have money to give, when I have money to give, I know exactly where it needs to go. It goes to mutual aid efforts in my neighborhood. And I know because I know exactly what it's going to. And I give it to mutual aid activists in San Pedro where I live. Why? Because this is my neighborhood. This is where I live. And I know what that money's going to do. So to me, that's just, and if I do give any money in electoralism, it is to local or quasi-local. Basically, state assembly is the highest I go. I gave some money to Fatima Iqbal Zubair. She was running for my state assembly. But anything else, I'm just like, it's just, and I'm not saying don't fight on all fronts. I'm not saying, oh, don't run for office or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. Everyone needs to occupy a different lane. It's just my lane. I'm an outsider, and I'm not an electoralism guy. I'm just not. Yeah. Let's see. Lucy, I want to see a candidate that platforms on ending homelessness and a living income for all. You guys know that a Housing First initiative has a 100% success rate. Do you guys know that? It has literally a 100% success rate. And we won't even in Los Angeles where I live, we could have a Housing First initiative many times over. We can afford it. We have the funds for it. But we don't even utter those words. Instead, what we do is we have these brutal sweeps that brutalize the houseless population. It's not safe for anybody involved. It is a total. That's why I don't understand how some people, and I know this is like really this is really going down the rabbit hole with Lucy's comment. I apologize, but I don't understand how some people, they make it out like supporting sweeps is somehow supporting law enforcement. And even for, like, that makes no sense at all. How is it seen as supporting law enforcement by putting them in a harm's way when it's not 1000% necessary? That makes no sense to me. Now, I get it. I'm an abolitionist, but even trying to see it from, like a pro law enforcement perspective, it makes zero sense. Hey, here's a brutal sweep. We want you, the police officer, to go displace a person. They could be severely mentally ill. They could be, like they could be having some manic episode, whatever. We want you to go in there. This is totally not a safe thing for anyone. It's brutal for everyone involved. And we want you to go in there and displace this person. And this isn't necessary at all. That's as anti, like how is that supporting a police officer? It isn't. Just like, how is it supporting the troops by sending them to unnecessary wars? How is that? Like it just makes zero sense. I support the troops by putting them in harm's way when it isn't necessary. It's the most backwards ass thing in the world. And I know on this stream, I'm probably preaching to the choir. But God, it's just, even from their perspective, it makes no sense. I support the police. Okay, by putting them in harm's way when it's not necessary? I support the troops. Okay, by putting them in a war that's not necessary. That's how you support them? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. And maybe that's how, change can kind of come about. When you communicate with people and you meet them where they're at. You communicate with people in your neighborhood and you meet them where they're at. Maybe if I'm at some kind of neighborhood council meeting in my neighborhood and the concept of sweeps come up and somebody who, probably has different political views than me says, oh, well, I want to support law enforcement. And I just say, look, let me meet you where you're at. Okay. Just help me wrap my head around this. How is it supporting law enforcement, which you say you're for? How is it supporting law enforcement by putting them in these situations when there are better alternatives? There are better alternatives that would not only help houseless people, but wouldn't put law enforcement, which you claim to support, wouldn't put them in this ridiculous situation where they're having to displace a person. They're ordered to displace a person. And, that's meeting someone where they're at. So, and then this gets into the bigger conversation. When you have a model like that for law enforcement, where somebody has to go and displace a houseless person and it's just doing business and it's part of the job, what does that lead to? That leads to having people who want to do that. And that's why I'm an abolitionist. I think we need to completely redo what it means to have law enforcement in our lives, because the system that we have now is not a system to serve and protect. It's a system to uphold and enforce and brutalize. It's set up that way. So when people join law enforcement for noble reasons, they get pushed out real quick. And when people want a badge and a gun so they can brutalize people, they get to stick around. The system's rotten to its core. It's rotten to its core. And something like that cannot be reformed. That's not reformable. Because the whole premise is freaking rotten. But, in your neighborhood, you might not, you don't want to start there. You can start with, how are these sweeps in any way helping anybody? They're brutalizing homeless people. They're putting everyone involved in harm's way in a situation that's not necessary. Why don't we try housing first instead? Man, I really got on a tangent there. Yeah, I really got on a tangent there. So let's see here. So those are the announcements. That was basically the agenda for today, y'all. And Drew, what's up? Good to see you, Drew, over on the Rockfin. Electoralism isn't the answer right now. I agree. That's a reality people need to be ready to accept, especially if the only option is to run Republican Democrat, which most that do sell out, I think is what you're saying, or throw a Hail Mary at a third party, which will likely lose. Yeah, I agree with you on electoralism. And my thought is, here's my thing. If electoralism is your lane, and for some people that needs to be their lane, as much as I'm like, electoralism isn't the answer, I don't think we should just completely ignore it either. But my thing is, if electoralism's your bag and that's where you want to be, and maybe some of you watching this show fall into that category, it's fine. That's not that. There's just different. We're just different. I'm an outsider. And I make no qualms about it. So if you're an insider, and by insider, I don't mean you're like a DNC insider. I mean you're like electoralism. You want to be inside of electoralism. That it takes all kinds. So I'm not like we're still on the same team. The only thing I would say is, if electoralism is your bag, if electoralism's your thing, why not start local? Because there's a lot more accountability in local politics. I'm not saying local politics is perfect. Of course it isn't. It's not. Electoral politics, local politics is usually like overrun with real estate developers and stuff like that. But you know why that is? It's because developers know how much power is in local politics. They figured that out years ago. We got to catch up. We got to realize, hey, guess what? We realize that there's power to be had here. And we're not going to let you use our freaking neighborhoods as a playground. And that means showing up to a city council meeting. That means showing up to your neighborhood council. That means joining your neighborhood council or whatever else. So I just say, and you don't have to be into electoralism to do all those things. I do a lot of that stuff. And electoralism is not my bag. But I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that developers aren't going to use my freaking neighborhood as a playground. So yeah. Oh, the wheels of change. Thank you, Lucy. Shine the light, Ron. It's not tangential. It's human rights. It's anti-fascist. Most of us are just a few missed paychecks from the horror of homelessness. Yeah. Most Americans can't afford $1,000 emergency. Over half the country makes less than $35,000 a year. They've basically made us all just indebted. They've just made us all. It's. And I'll say this too. I have never seen it quite like this in my lifetime. And what I mean is, and I tweeted this recently, the Overton window in the United States has always been completely absurd. I mean, it's always been ridiculously far to the right. Ridiculously, like just so freaking far to the right. Indy Left, thanks for this shout out. 2 words, municipal broadband. Thank you, Indy. I appreciate it, buddy. It's always been, our Overton window has always been so ridiculously far to the right, but it has gone from absurd to extremely dangerous. And what I mean by that is we are now living in an era where just reactionary knee-jerk politics is not only normalized, but it's basically the mainstream. And over on the GOP side, we have straight up theocratic fascism. Ron DeSantis, I think, is an ugliness we have never seen before. So we are just rampant with knee-jerk reactionaries and straight up theocratic fascism. And that's where our window is. I've never seen it this bad. Never in my lifetime. And the only time I've ever heard of stuff like this, I've read about it in books. We all have. Doesn't end well. It does not end well. So this can either be the beginning of the worst, or it could be the beginning of a renaissance, but we're definitely heading towards that beginning of the worst. And I've never seen it quite like this. But you know what else I've never seen? I've never seen union efforts the way I've seen them. I've never seen union efforts at Starbucks, at Amazon. I've never seen an entire generation of young people where capitalism is a dirty word. I've never seen that. I've never seen talks of a general strike quite like this. I've never seen, in my industry, in show business, the writers are striking. The actors are going to follow suit. The Teamsters aren't crossing a picket line. And when we withhold our labor, that's what freaking scares them. That's what scares them. Not some bullshit election. Not some freaking, not people saying a bunch of, contrarian things for online points. No. When we withhold our freaking labor. That's why mutual aid is so important. We can't withhold our labor without a bunch of mutual aid. That's why it's so freaking important. And that's why, again, when I have money to give, that's where it goes. It doesn't go to someone running for office. It goes to mutual aid. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. When we withhold our labor, that's what scares them. You will own nothing and be happy. Thank you, Maria. Thank you. I will own nothing and be happy. You know what's funny? I mean, I know what you mean with that sentiment, but I actually used to always like the idea of being able to just pack it up and be out in like 15 minutes. And I can't do that anymore. I guess I'm a little more domesticated these days. I'm a married man. I don't hit the road as much as I used to. Yeah. Grad students striking everywhere too. Yep. Grad student strikes all throughout the country now. So, yeah. That's where we're at. So, every yin has its yang. I've never seen the Overton window in this ugly and dangerous of a place. I never have. Not in my lifetime. But I've also never seen labor rising this way in my lifetime. I mean, I think the last time has been, maybe in the 80s, maybe. So here's hoping again. Here's hoping that we're heading towards that renaissance and not towards the beginning of the worst. But if we're not careful, it could be the beginning of the worst. So, folks, in other news, tour dates, I got them. Come out and see a show. At least we can gather together and laugh. Gives us something. Gives us a break. June 16th, Madison, Wisconsin. June 17th, Minneapolis. June 23rd, Detroit. June 28th, Bloomington, Indiana. June 29th, Chicago. For all my overseas friends, Edinburgh. I'm going to be at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival August 16th through 27th. Make your plans now. See you in Edinburgh. And October 21st, I'll be doing a comedy series right in my neighborhood in San Pedro. Tickets are available at ronplacone.com. All tickets and information, ronplacone.com. See you there. Can't wait to see you on the road. And again, if you want to support this show on the sustainability end, I did the thing, patreon.com/ronplacone. Best way to do it. In some other news, y'all, Lucy and Ron is coming back in June. It's official. I just saw the latest comic. We are back. Chris and I are back. Lucy and Ron is back. The first new comic will drop in June. So in a couple days. And also, we're going to be carried by the Funny Times newspaper. So if you're familiar with the Funny Times newspaper, they will be carrying Lucy and Ron. And we are back with new issues. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lucy. Yeah, we are back, and we're pretty excited to be back. So I'm really excited about Lucy and Ron coming back. I'm really excited about the new podcast series, and I'm really excited about my movie, which we're editing right now. Left It Wall is on its way. It will be hitting the festival circuit soon. Loner, we're hoping to make some more episodes of Loners. We're looking for some sponsors for that. So yeah, well, Get Your News On with Ron is going to be not a flagship show anymore. There's some really, really cool stuff on the horizon. And if you want to support what I'm doing, again, best way to do it, patreon.com/ronplacone. And of course, if I'm coming to a city near you, come on out to the show. You know the drill. In the meantime, and let me give another quick thank you. Podcast by George. Always great to hear from you, buddy. Thank you, Despos Fleisch, and thank you, Maria C. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on the sustainability end. You help keep the show on the air, and we will be back. But it won't be on the typical Sunday. We're switching things up. Schultze, thank you for the loner love. We're going to tell that rest of the story. What's the name of Left It Wall is the name of my movie, Lucy, and the trailer is out. The trailer's been out since 2021, and we're finally finishing it up. We still got a long way to go. Editing takes a long time, so we still got a long way to go. But we're finally making some progress, and it has taken a long time since we dropped the trailer. But yeah, it's all out there, and so I'm excited about what's coming up. And best way to support it, again, patreon.com/ronplacone. We will be back. I'll be announcing it on Patreon when the next stream is, because, again, we're switching up formats. To all the audio podcast listeners, sign up, patreon.com/ronplacone. And, of course, if you want to be just kept abreast of everything, you also get previews of the 1,000 guests before it goes live, because the series is not going to start until July at the earliest. Might not be till fall. But if you're a patron, you're going to get some previews before everyone else. And you're going to get full extended interviews that don't get posted. So yeah, don't get posted in their entirety. So y'all, thank you so much. See you on the road. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow. And she says, I'm glad my freaking comic is back. And I say, peace, love, and a general strike.